Would you like to play a podcast?
The moment our fellow geeks, dweebs, nerds, and other unfortunates have been fervently waiting for has finally arrived. It's time for TMI, Confessionals of the Nerd Kind. And now, your hosts, Jeff Nerf Herder Chandler, Jim Kaiju Baker, and Christina Yojimbo Henry. You can continue. And now, let's get on with the show. Here is TMI.
It's like Josh, a nostril actor. He flares his nostril.
Oh, I like it because once you see it, you can't unsee it. Is that basically what it comes down to? That's why I do it
All
here
right,
on the show.
that might be a good start to this episode. Actually,
Nose flares, nostril flares.
Nose flares, yeah.
Some of us have strawberry moon. Some of us has nostrils flares.
So welcome back, everybody.
Yes, we're here another week.
Yeah.
People are coming back.
Are you digging our original / remake episode series? Because you're in the midst of it. I'm sorry if you're not, because you're right in the dead center of it.
Just listen. You come out the other side, we'll have something else. Although it sounds like July is going to get busy.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of stuff coming out in July. We're going to be reviewing 25 movies a week in July.
I don't know because depending on how my theater's set up, I might book a slot.
We were talking about captive audiences last week. That's us when it comes to these theaters reopening. We're gonna go in, risk life and limb, sit there and watch a movie, and we'll see how it plays out. And
Speaking of risking life and limb, I watched both of these movies, Jim.
Come on.
With the lights on.
These are so kind of milquetoast horror movies. These are got it,
but when I got to the remake and all of a sudden there's a freaking talking doll, I'm like, you son of a bitch. I said, here we go.
These are gateway movies. These are Tourist Trap was 100 times better than both.
Ooh, Tourist Trap was these
actually I would be surprised if these scared you, Jeff. My son actually normally watches them, but he dismissed the remake even though Guillermo del Toro was associated with it. He didn't even watch it. He was like, it looks like Poltergeist. And then he just said no, and he would rather play Fallout. So
nice. I just fell out. No, they didn't scare me, but I don't like going into a movie not knowing what I'm getting into.
That's the part of it. That's the part of the fun. Right? Even if it doesn't scare you, ultimately, it's like that anticipation.
The 73 movie was for a made-for-TV movie. This was pretty hardcore.
Kids watch this. That's how I saw it. Was as a 7-8-year-old kid and terrified. So it's been imprinted in my psyche for all these years. You didn't see it in
73.
Not in 73, but it was played on the Saturday afternoon horror movie on WPIX or WR, whatever it was on.
Yeah, no, it was pretty...
quite a bit.
Wow.
So anybody that doesn't know what we're doing is the original and remake of Don't Be Afraid of the Dark, which was originally an ABC TV movie of the week back in 1973.
Right.
But before we get into that, do we have any news?
I have one news item. That is it. But it's actually a pretty good one, which is good news. Hollywood is opening up again. Governor of California has announced June 12th. Everyone can go back to work.
Oh, so production is restarted, is kickstarted back up again.
There's all kinds of caveats. I can read you this quick little blip, which says music, TV, and film production may resume in California. Recommended no sooner than June 12, 2020, and subject to approval by county public health officers with the jurisdictions of operations following the review of local epidemiological data, including cases per 100,000 population, rate of test positivity, and local preparedness to support a healthcare surge, vulnerable populations, contact tracing, and testing. So what does that mean? That's
so basically,
a mouthful.
Yeah, I mean, basically it means they'll start filming, but if cases surge and there's a lot of people going to the ER, then they're just gonna,
Yeah,
it's
so
gonna get shut down
it
again.
sounds like here's the one thing I did come across, which was Tyler Perry's studio that based in Atlanta have already set their parameters, and I guess each one of these studios is going to basically govern themselves based on these guidelines that California is setting down.
What could go wrong?
His casting, ready for this? It calls for casting to be tested for COVID-19 with nasal swabs before they come to set, self-isolate for 16 days, travel only via private jet, and then be tested again when they touch down in Atlanta, among other measures.
Well, I hope they're going to provide the private jets.
I don't know. These guys haven't had a paycheck in 3 months. So that's very interesting. I mean, I guess, good news, kind of good news. It's like, you can go back to work, but figure this out.
You know what the big question mark for me was? There was a lot of TV shows that had to stop production. And for example, I was reading some article, and I don't watch the show, but the show Supernatural, which has been on how many seasons?
Yeah, I think it's going off the air this year.
It's going off the air, and they were never able to finish filming their last 2 episodes before COVID hit. So there's been a question mark whether or not they'd be able to air these episodes, film them, and then air them this season. So
oh, wow. Maybe they'll just wrap it up next year.
Right.
Well, that's kind of
like a special event movie.
Right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Wow.
So what about releases? Is there any news about anything other than Tenet being in the theaters?
No, I mean we did see, and I didn't put it in my notes, but what I just say the sequel to Train to Busan is set for release the end of July.
Well, I know that Christina will be able to see that. Mm-hmm. If she so chooses theatrically. Jeff and I probably not.
But if there's no new movies coming out, I mean, we may get.
Yeah, they're going to be struggling for content, right?
Yeah, right.
Isn't Mulan supposed to come out in July?
Mulan is set in July.
Late July, right? Late July.
Tenet is still July.
Tenet, that always had a July release.
Right. They never dropped it.
They just never changed it.
Yep.
But I mean, I know so much stuff has been like pushed and moved around. So
I know August is going to be very crowded as well.
It's hard to know right now actually what's going to come out, and of course it's going to depend. The studios are not going to want to release stuff unless the majority of states have reopened their theaters. Like Illinois is in phase 3 of reopening, but we have not opened movie theaters yet.
No.
So, will we be ready to open movie theaters 3 weeks from now?
Right.
I don't know.
Right, because I think we actually had a news article last week that Cinemark, who owns Regal, had said that they're going to start opening up in July. But again, it's probably got by region.
Right.
New York, we're still, where I am, we're still in phase 1.
Depending what the curve is in whatever state that you're in.
I'll give you a curve. Damn you, COVID.
Jeff, I had a bit of news. This is really proves your psychic abilities, because I don't know if it was on the Black Cauldron episode where you had laid it down and you said this is something that Disney should redo as a live action remake. I don't know what the validity is of this article that I read.
I wrote it. I wrote the article.
It lists 7 movies that Disney is now in the process of looking at as doing live action updates. So on the list, obviously Black Cauldron. Robin Hood.
Yep. Hold on, let's backtrack a little bit. They're all
wait. So then it won't really be like a live action.
No, it'll be
like Lion King.
CGI, right?
King.
Yeah.
Unless they go with the route of doing another,
so what,
human Robin Hood.
So we're getting like a Cats.
That would be
basically, because Robin Hood doesn't wear pants.
But no, again, if they do like another Kevin Costner type update of Robin Hood, that might be. It didn't say. It just said that they were looking at doing these as live action.
There's been if you're not doing it with a fox and a bear and a lion as Prince John and Sir Hiss, I'm out. Robin Hood's been done to death.
But Bambi is another one, and that will have to be CG.
Right.
Can't do that. Can't do that as humans. Unless you call it Luca or something instead of.
They're gonna bring in Doug Jones. He's gonna be in a little body costume.
Tangled is on the list, which I'm surprised they haven't looked at before. Lilo and Stitch, which we knew about.
Yep, we did talk about that.
Atlantis.
Yes.
And Treasure Planet.
So they're mining the back end. They're really mining the back end of.
I love Treasure Planet.
Treasure Planet
is
great.
One of my favorites.
We did an episode of Treasure Planet.
Yeah. Treasure Planet's like really, really underrated, I think.
Treasure Planet, you should listen to our episode.
And I had never seen it.
Jim had never seen it, and it is one of my family's absolute favorites. As a matter of fact, my DVD cover is still out because I'm waiting for Johnny Resnick to sign it. I have a friend of a friend who knows him, and it's not like he's doing anything right now.
I mean, if they put the effort into it and didn't do it kind of on the cheap, it could look really cool.
Treasure Planet, the animation itself, even in the original,
beautiful.
Is pretty.
The Blu-ray that I rented was amazing.
Right, you bring back Martin Short to play Ben.
So, what about Black Cauldron? Would you like to see that as CGI live actors?
I would like to see it done with like sort of the same love and care that like was put into the first, into Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, or Lord of the Rings. Like take it seriously, take the material seriously. Don't blow it off.
So go back to the source material.
Yes,
go back to the books. Yep, go back to the books
and invest in it. Because like I think I wasn't on the episode when you guys did Black Cauldron, but I know I've mentioned to you that these books meant a lot to me as a kid. I still have my copies from when I was a kid, and I know I'm not the only one, who really, really loved these books. So I'd like to see them, not just remake their animated version, but go back to the books and really, invest in it and do a good job.
Other piece of news: there's a bit of WandaVision casting that's been revealed. Evan Peters is playing a mystery role, and this is very interesting.
It is.
Because
I know
as
why.
we know, he played Quicksilver
right
in the X-Men movies, and Quicksilver died in the second Avengers, as played by Aaron Taylor Johnson.
So we're playing with some multiverse,
but we don't know who he's playing. They're keeping.
Come on, you can't bring him
wraps.
back into the MCU and not have him play the same character.
I think he's great as Quicksilver.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think he's
bring him
better.
over.
I like him better than Aaron Taylor Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
Shh.
Oh, no disparaging. No disparaging. Yeah, but apparently Evan Peters has already filmed his role, so it's done, over with.
Yeah, I think that was already wrapped. Maybe just post-production stuff.
But now they're just leaking a little bit here and there to give it.
Yeah, but don't stop again. Just like The Mandalorian. You know what it is? It's a slow news cycle. There's nothing new coming out of Hollywood, so they got to let this stuff go. And it's like, that would have been a great reveal.
It would have been.
Right? You come to work the next day and you're like, holy shit, did you
There's
see
a lot of people, Mike, our previous co-host included, that canceled their Disney Plus subscription after they finished watching the Mandalorian. Yeah. So they're trying to lure those people back. I don't know what kind of figures they're looking at.
And they'll come back around October when season 2 of Mandalorian drops.
Listen, I don't think Disney's too concerned
about
those people, because I can't remember the exact figures, but the projected numbers they were looking at for subscriptions in India were like incomprehensible. So
that's good. They've got to cover their theme park intake somehow. So hopefully this is doing it. So this week, again, we are 2 episodes deep with this one into our original remake series. And we are covering Don't Be Afraid of the Dark. Now, this is the reason why I'm doing this podcast, is covering movies like this, that I can just pluck from my childhood or deeply buried in my psyche and share them with the world.
And force us to watch them.
Yeah. Or the 100 people that listen to our episode a week at least.
No, I'm not watching that. I'll listen to your show, but I'm not watching that.
Don't Be Afraid of the Dark. 1973, done as a movie of the week for ABC in October of that year. Around this time, this was a very popular thing, believe it or not. Horror movies made for TV. Now, it kind of started with The Night Stalker, which was also an ABC TV movie. Ratings blew off the roof for The Night Stalker. They made a sequel, The Night Strangler, and then they came out with The Night Stalker TV show.
Yeah.
Gargoyles was a made-for-TV movie around that time. I think it was 72 that one came out, same year as Night Stalker. In the midst of all this, Don't Be Afraid of the Dark was produced and released for ABC. It must have been only 90 minutes because watching it commercial free, it was like an hour and 15 minutes. So it was in and out and it did its job.
And I love the old fade to blacks on the commercial breaks.
Yeah.
You know, it was like, all right, I can catch a breather for 2
It was
seconds.
I would really have loved to have seen this with the commercials intact.
It's a lost art, though. The idea of being able to take a storyline and to get it to a certain point in a commercial, you know, we're like.
Where it's a natural break where
correct,
you can.
Because, I mean, I was watching something the other day. And they just, it was like right in the middle of an action sequence, and they just cut the commercial. And I'm just like, I changed the channel.
Yeah, speaking of that, the opening, I think it was Lorimar Productions. I thought I was watching Murder, She Wrote for a second.
Well, that house that they used is on every episode of Murder, She Wrote or Barnaby Jones. Like, it is such an iconic California house in all of those 70s TV shows.
I mean, to me, I thought it looked like the cover of a Gothic novel from the 70s. Oh, look, there's the black cat, and there's the silhouette of the house in the dark, and someone's throwing dead leaves in front of the camera, you know. Yeah,
I will say, as a kid, I would have lost my freaking mind watching this movie. It was some messed up crap for
as did Guillermo del Toro, apparently, because it stayed in his psyche as well.
Yeah, he should have just let it go, though.
But it's true. Something that he said about this original movie is that it's the voices of the little monsters that stuck with
that's
them.
exactly
the
what
whispering voices.
Yep.
She's gonna set us free.
Set us free. And then once they figure out what her name is, that got a little overdone. The Sally.
Every time I heard them say Sally, all I could think of was the mad scientist from Nightmare Before Christmas. Sally, is this wormworts I smell?
So the setup here is really simple. I don't know if they're newlyweds or not, but they move into a house.
They don't seem to care for each other very much.
No, well, was mostly the husband's deal.
He's a jerk.
He was a big, and they're jerks in both movies.
He was ineffective as a husband and as a human being. He really brought nothing to the table. Oh, man.
And it was definitely, of its time in terms of the relationship between the husband and wife, because she is very much a stay-home wife.
Yep. He's climbing the corporate ladder.
And as she's losing her mind, she still has it forefront to please her husband. It's like she has to play to his ego. Yeah. Even as she's experiencing this, it's...
he doesn't believe her. Can we talk about Kim Darby? Because if you go back to probably the first or second episode of this show, we talked about our confessional was our first cinematic crushes. And she was mine from True Grit.
From True Grit.
And the minute I saw her on screen, I'm like, she's back.
She's only 26 in this movie.
Well, and she was right, because this only came out like 4 years after True Grit.
And they make her look like she's 45.
She's a dowdy.
I know.
Yeah, it was really weird.
The house coats and the robes and the hair.
After a while, she was like living in that damn robe.
But it's just sort of like these frumpy suits and like these horrible cheap shoes. And I was like, who dressed her? The
70s were not kind to the wardrobe. The big lapels.
Yeah.
She was like a flying nun. She could have jumped out a window and flown away.
Yeah, they probably raided Mr. and Mrs. Brady's closet.
Oh, that is true.
Clothes,
as a matter, yeah. Although the one thing I did learn about this one was that the 70s women obviously hate mice and love shopping.
Oh, gosh. I mean...
And spending their husband's money.
Let's go. I'll make you feel better. Let's go spend his money.
I mean, I can definitely see if I saw this when I was a kid for the first time that this would be scary. But as an adult, I was like, I can't believe any adult watched this, even in 1973, and thought it was remotely frightening.
It's a cult movie now, and it's made a cult movie by kids of the 70s.
Right. Yeah, if you saw it when you were a kid.
It's very effective, though. I mean, yeah, but listen, I'm a grown adult. It's the first time I saw it, and I'm like, all right. I mean, the music plays up. Yeah, it's cliched or whatever, but for its time, I thought it was pretty...
I hate to say, for its time, though. I mean, I know it was a TV movie, but, if you look at the amazing horror movies that are being produced in the 60s and 70s, of its time is not really an excuse. You know what I mean? I don't know. For me, it was sort of like watching paint dry. I just did not, and I did not understand why her responses to everything were so out of proportion.
You're hurting people here. You're hurting people.
I just didn't understand why her responses were so out of proportion to everything. The dust tray fell down. Let it go, lady.
Oh, you probably knocked it with your elbow. I didn't. I saw the whole thing. But she was on him.
I wasn't anywhere near it. I tell you.
Oh, honey, let's go shopping.
And
Right,
then when
but-
she actually sees the creature for the first time at the party, she just sort of like swallows. You know, she's having a drink and she's just kind of like, oh, I see a little creature. Okay. That's when you freak out, when you see the thing, not when you knock the ashtray.
Well, she
impression at
did.
first,
She
right,
stood
that-
up and screamed, right? At that
No,
point.
that's later.
My napkin.
First, she sees it come out of the plant
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
when she's getting a drink,
Yeah.
right? She gets the
Yeah.
punch.
And then it grabs her dress at one point. It's behind the curtain.
Right.
But
I
when
don't know.
I thought that's what she did when she disrupted the party. She stood up and screamed.
She
and then
does. She
My
screams.
napkin fell.
And even then, it's like if you were able to be cool a second ago when you were drinking the punch and you saw it in the plant,
Right
maybe
now,
you
all
could
of a
just
sudden-
hang on for another 15 minutes of small talk.
So let's
Yeah.
actually set up. Let's make the setup here.
We've
We
all
did.
shown
I
our
didn't get
hands
that
at this
far
point.
before we started talking about it. The new couple moves into a house and they're restoring it, and it's the wife's grandmother's house. They have an on-site handyman by the name
Mr.
of Mr.
Harris.
Harris, who is Uncle Charlie from My Three Sons.
Oh, is that who that was? He was
Yeah.
doing like his best Columbo. He's like, excuse me, one more thing.
Don't go in there, ma'am. Don't
Right, it's
go
like,
in there.
You know what? When your handyman tells you some things are better left alone, just listen to him.
I was expecting him to start yelling at Ernie at any given point. Ernie, don't go in there.
Where are my three sons?
He can't say anything. He's always talking in riddles and,
He was
and
like Yoda.
generalities, right? Very vague.
I'm
And
just
we
telling
learn
you.
a little bit later that these creatures have some kind of, I don't know if they're blackmailing him or what.
Yeah,
but-
exactly. But meanwhile, they were trapped for 20 years in the
So they go into this house.
Fireplace,
So they're
yeah.
fixing it up, and she wants to find a key to the basement, which she does, and she opens it. And the fireplace in the basement, which she wants to turn into an office, has been bricked off. And Uncle Charlie insists that it should be kept
Uncle
that way.
Charlie. We're just gonna call him Uncle Charlie
Yeah.
from now on. Okay.
She
let's go with it.
wants to knock the fireplace in so she can have a nice
Mm.
fire while she's doing whatever work that she does. And he has none of it. And there's an opening on the side that he says is to sweep out the ashes. But once she opens it up, she can't let it go. She opens it up. She looks down, and it's just like a bottomless pit.
Stick her head right. Yeah, go ahead. Just stick your head in the chimney that the man just told you don't open. She's got to be pretty strong to undo those screws. They had
And
to be all rusty 20 years.
The reason that he didn't want her to open it is that there's little creatures, and we only see 3. It's a
They look like-
trio. of
And they're
creatures.
like these little peach pit heads.
It's like the California raisins, right?
Oh yeah.
So it's like
through the fireplace.
it's it's raisin masks with the gorilla suit from Robot Monster, which is, remember that old movie with
yeah. And when they talk, their mouths don't move. I mean, the jaw moves, but the mouth doesn't open.
but it's still, as a kid seeing these creatures. So once she opens that fireplace, that side grating,
She set us free.
she set us free. The thing is that they want Sally. From that point on, they're trying to get to her, and they focus in on Sally, the wife. And
you think that
apparently,
they'd be happy that she freed them, but no, they want her soul.
and they want her soul. They wanted to bring her. Apparently, one of those 3, I think, is her grandfather, because when you get taken in, there's a story about
become
how
one
the
of them.
grandfather disappeared. You become one of them.
Yeah.
So is her grandfather trying to kidnap her?
And that's all told and like that unfolds as the movie goes. You
Right.
don't realize that right up front.
I know what's great is that, these are little things that live in the fireplace. And whenever they're in the house, it's like extra large sets that they're on.
Oh, I know.
Like
I loved it too, right? The bookcase
giant
and
television, the
bookcase,
giant
yeah.
telephone. When the little hand reaches out with the clothes hanger to turn off the light when
Yes,
she's in the
right,
shower,
yeah.
the skeletal
Yeah,
hand.
the giant doorknob.
And then they have the husband's straight razor that he uses to shave.
But that's what I mean when I talk about her responses are not in proportion to what happened, right? So she goes on and on about the broken ashtray. She screams and makes an absolute ass of herself during the dinner party, which
Right.
anybody could have predicted was going to happen.
Yes, correct.
And then when she's in the bathroom, in the shower, naked and vulnerable, and they come in with the straight razor,
And they turn the light off.
she calmly gets out of the shower and
Right.
turns the light on. And like, oh, look, there's a
Yep,
razor
there they are.
on the
Oh, there's a
ground.
razor.
Oh,
Mm.
like her responses to everything are not in proportion to what's happening. You know when you start screaming? When something is in the bathroom with a straight razor. That's when you start screaming.
But watching this as a kid, does not occur to you what should be and should not be done, because you just accept it at face value.
No, I 100% agree that if I watched this for the first time when I was
a kid,
I can definitely see how it would have an impact. But as an adult, I'm like...
That's a fair point. But watching these as an adult, like if you see something as a kid like this and you hold it so high in your mind, in your memory.
You're not right. You're not going to.
And you haven't seen it for 30 years. Like I've seen this more recently than 30 years. Probably it's been maybe 6 or 7. When I got it, I was so excited and I put it on, and it's kind of like chasing the dragon. You want that feeling back again from when you were 7 or 8 years old.
Yeah.
And 99% of the time, things like this don't deliver. You know, again, you have to try to put yourself back in that mind frame as a little kid and not ever seeing a sophisticated horror movie before. This is what you were given. This is what you were given.
That's when I just picked up the Blu-ray of Legend of Boggy Creek. That movie messed me up big time as a kid. And when I sat down to rewatch it, I'm kind of like, it's like a documentary. It's not even scary. There's like one scene where the guy gets chased off the toilet.
But there's still a novelty about watching it at the same time.
Oh yeah, because you're trying your best to just get back into that 6-year-old mindset of why this thing freaked you out.
Getting further into it, just talking about how the husband is such a jerk and not believing her. There's a voiceover with the wives. You see them shopping on the high street of whatever town they're in California. Husbands can be so difficult, is I think one of the lines. Buckle down and deal with them.
You're buckled down here. Let's go get some alcohol.
And then she finally convinces him to sell the house, and she has to make it like it's his decision. And then she says, "Thank you," and he says, "You're welcome." As
well, the thing is, though, is like if she's flipping out that much, why didn't he put her up in a hotel for a couple of days?
I know, get her
out of the house. I mean, Joan was just like, "Come with me," and she's like, "Nah, I'm good.
And even at the end, when he starts to believe that something's wrong, it takes her friend to convince him that there's something wrong, that there's something actually going on, and that she believes her. And he decides to do is to leave her there and go to talk to Mr. Harris, Uncle Charlie.
Well, that's after he already left, because they had that big party, and he's like, "Oh, by the way, I'm going on a big account tomorrow morning, so we're gonna have a big party. I'm gonna leave you to clean it up, and I'll be back because I'm doing manly stuff."
You've seen your wife have a breakdown in front of all of your colleagues, but you're still going to go on the business trip.
Mm-hmm.
So, because she's an embarrassment.
And she's having a breakdown because she's in the house, and he still leaves her alone in the house.
Yeah, and the thing is, just turn a freaking light on.
I know.
There's so many lamps throughout this house. Just freaking turn a light on.
When she started taking out the candles.
She must have cleaned out wicks and sticks, because she came home and she just had giant grocery bags filled with candles.
But it seemed like she had a game plan by getting those candles out, but it wasn't really anything. No. They still got her in the end. Yeah. And it was great with the interior designer.
That was great, because they trip him down the stairs, and I'm like, "Oh, I agree with the Gremlins. The only good interior decorator is a dead interior decorator." Oh! Down he goes. Take the dead body away, and they leave her in the house again.
I know. Why would you stay in the house?
He now died, and she saw them trip him. You know, and she's got the wounds on her hand. She's showing Joan, look, it was a rope. She's like, "Where'd you get those?"
And that's what makes her believer is the wounds on her hands. Something's going on.
But then they roofied her. Then they took the sleeping pills and they dumped them in her.
The Gremlins did. I got the.
They roofied her. Yeah, it was like, "We want your souls, Allie." Oh my gosh! Just get her out of the house.
So Alex goes away to talk to Uncle Charlie, leaving her again alone, and then
this is where he finally reveals all this, and it's like, if you just said this up front, we could have saved an hour and a half of this movie.
You know, that's the thing I don't understand, like plot. I mean, I don't understand many things plot-wise about this movie, but this one thing I really don't understand. You know, he, like the carpenter guy, ominous carpenter guy, he is threatened by like the little people when they think he said something.
Right.
But like they only come out if you let them out, right? So they're no threat to you as long as they're locked inside. So why not tell people that they're in
while
there?
They're locked in? Yeah.
Yeah, like that's the time to reveal the information.
Right.
Yeah.
And what were they doing down there for 20 years? just biding their time, I guess, right?
They're not eating teeth in this version. It's just they're playing tiddlywinks or something.
Yeah, they just wanted their soul.
They have the barrel of monkeys, and they're stacking them up.
We're almost there. Oh, I fell again. Let's go again. I want her soul.
But this is the ending is what really gut punched me as a kid, because it is a downer ending, to say the least, because they get her. They get Sally. They tie her ankles. And that image of her being dragged across the floor, that is what stuck with me from when I was a kid. And I was dreading that scene coming up, like, oh, it's not so bad. My son is
it's pretty but here's the thing, which is she grabs a camera as she's being dragged across the floor and she takes a picture of them. So you're like, oh, this whole thing's going to play out, and then they're going to find the evidence she was right all along. And nothing ever comes of it.
No. And of course, the husband gets there at the last minute as she's being dragged down. He hears her screams. And then you see from that point of view, from their point of view, looking up, and the husband looking down. And apparently, does he not rip the house apart with a team of looking for her after she's
not going
gone?
down there? The
next thing you see is the house, view of the house from outside, like you saw in the beginning, and you hear her voice whispering along with like, we have all the time in the world. And this is where you expect that Louis Armstrong song to come in. We have all the time in the world.
So you guys got barrel of monkeys down here?
So, but yeah, it's, again, for me, it's very much of its time from when I was a kid. So I still hold it in pretty high regard as a favorite from those days, those carefree days when sneaking the horror movies on WPIX and WR, my parents not knowing what I was watching. So this was just one of the many things that kind of made me who I am today. So that
ruined your psyche.
Now, you may not be surprised to know that this was planned, shot, and finished in 2 weeks.
2 weeks. That's unbelievable. 2 weeks. I'm shocked.
And the director is a veteran of a lot of other TV series, but he never did horror before or since. Or I think, no, maybe he did do a couple of Night Gallery episodes. And this really feels like it is like an overlong Twilight Zone kind of a Night Gallery kind of an episode where not a lot of explanation is given. It's just kind of
especially with
presented,
that ending,
it's there,
ending,
and this is what it is.
It's not a happy ending. You're like, oh, there she goes.
So, and I think that the little creatures are effective, regardless of their raisiness.
Oh, yeah.
Sure, right?
Yeah. I mean, you see them.
I think they're creepier than the remake creatures. Just because that tangibility is there. They don't have that CGI sheen.
Yeah, I think that's the one detriment that people are throwing out at the remake.
And those and the outfits that they're wearing, like as a kid, I think I had like these nightmarish scenarios where they killed that black cat in the beginning and made their clothes
just made their costumes out of the black fur.
Because you never see that cat again. That's just thrown in there for a Halloween effect, I think.
There you go. Stock footage.
So, yes.
So
I would give it, on the strength of my memories of it, I would give it 3.
I'll go 3 just because I enjoy it. I was like, all right, this is not really as bad. I added a bucket because of Kim Darby, though. So
Christina?
Do you want me to say?
Of course.
Of course I do.
I understand, like...
Condor Man!
I understand that this is close to your heart, but is not close to mine.
No. But I find it fascinating that you've never heard of this before.
No.
Because it did make the rounds.
You have to understand that I'm just a little bit younger than you. I was born in 1974. She likes
to bring this up every episode.
No, this matters because especially when you're talking about like cultural things that like happen at certain times. Like I was born in 1974. So when you like if the movie came out in 1973 and you saw it when you were like
already out of high school.
8 or 9, you know, I was only like 3. You know what I mean? So this is not something that I would have encountered.
No,
right?
yeah.
So yeah, it just never like came across my radar, and I don't know, it didn't really do anything for me. And I hate to say, like I said, I hate to say like, oh, it's of its time, and like we're supposed to dismiss it because of that. Because you brought up the Twilight Zone. Twilight Zone came out before this. Twilight Zone does an amazing job building suspense, I think, with very little. Or like Alfred Hitchcock Presents. But like to me, this was not suspenseful. This was not. It was implausible, and mostly I was actually just relieved that it was over.
You see, well, I have the same feeling about the remake, but with this, I can't. It's just my memories of this.
Right.
Yeah, I don't look at it that way. The implausibility factor.
Right. Yeah, because you're looking at it from when you were
rose-colored glasses.
When you were a kid, right? It's like you have goggles on, like these nostalgia
beer goggles.
So I think of
milk bottles.
So it does, I was talking about Chasing the Dragon before, but watching this in some small way does bring me back to that time. So there are memories involved. Again, I didn't find it as scary, but I enjoyed it nonetheless.
Right.
Yeah, I didn't enjoy it. I'm going to say that it's a 1, but only because I like you.
So that bucket's for you, Jim.
Thank you. The concession was made. And that's a nice segue. That's a nice segue.
Well, hold on. Because did you know that George Hamilton was set to play Alex?
No, really?
Would have been hilarious.
Yeah, that would have been a completely different movie. You would have stolen the movie.
He would have. I can't see that.
The only other thing I caught that was after the fact, which is Felix Silla played one of the creatures. And now he went on to play Twiki in Buck Rogers, which was on last night. He also played an Ewok in Return of the Jedi, and he was in Spaceballs. I had to assume that he was one of the Dink-Dinks.
Mel Blanc, unfortunately, did not voice one of these creatures.
No.
So with that, let's go to the concession stand.
I
want some popcorn. I want some popcorn.
I want your soul, Sally.
So we're going to go to the concession stand, and we will be right back with the remake of Don't Be Afraid of the Dark.
Do we have to?
Mr. Projectionist, stop the show. Here's great news you ought to know. We've just got a shipment of taste-thrilled treats, all tip-top quality and delicious eats. There are hot dogs and popcorn and candy galore. There's soft drinks and coffee and a whole lot more. So direct your steps to our refreshment stand to enjoy the finest snacks in all the land.
Now we're talking about the remake, and I was so excited to see this, and especially the fact that Guillermo del Toro was involved. I thought it was going to be a can't miss.
He wasn't out of the park. He wrote the screenplay. What was it? He wasn't a producer.
He co-wrote the screenplay,
and he was a producer.
And he's a producer. He didn't direct it.
He picked the director, though.
Yeah.
Well.
Troy Nixey, who had not directed a feature length before. But Del Toro was very impressed with his short Latchkey's Lament. And I've never seen that, but I guess it was good enough that Del Toro wanted him to direct this. And he's also a comic book illustrator. He's done Neil Gaiman's Only the End of the World Again and Harley Quinn and Matrix titles. So,
ooh, interesting.
Troy Nixey.
But he hasn't done a feature since.
No, he has not done a feature since.
Well, I think we know why. Stick to comic books.
And they try to flesh this story out from what they were presented in the 1973 version. So they try to open with a backstory of the creatures, and they give a little bit of explanation about who the creatures were and who owned the house beforehand. It's no longer the relative of the couple.
Mr. Blackwood.
And Sally is now an 8-year-old girl rather than a frustrated housewife.
That opening sequence, we got to talk about it because it's absolutely unnecessary. The violence is just, I'm like.
But it's not really shown.
It's implied. It's implied, but it's
and
still,
you can hear it. You can definitely hear it.
I thought it was, and it doesn't really play out in the rest of the movie.
Let me tell you, that scene where he's running that mallet or whatever it is over her teeth. That was the most unbearable part of the movie, for the scariest part of the movie for me. Right. I could not watch that.
But I actually want to talk about this a little bit in the context of this film. The fact that this film is rated R shows me how completely meaningless the R rating is. Yeah. Like if you think about something like Saw is rated R, you know, or
Right.
like The Devil's Rejects, where there's torture, is rated R. But this, which is like maybe PG-13 violence and like PG level scares.
I mean, you get rid of that one little scene in the front, and there's absolutely nothing else.
What's funny about you saying this is Del Toro was going for a PG-13, and that's what he wanted because he wanted teenagers.
So then get rid of that opening scene.
But
I don't even know if the opening scene would justify the R.
What else would
so
it be,
he gives it to the Motion Picture Association for rating. It comes back with an R, and he asks them, "What do I have to do to make this a PG-13?" And they say, "Why do you want to do that? It's a perfectly good horror movie the way it is." And so he left it alone.
But it's not. I mean, nobody even swears in this movie.
I know.
Like, what would be the justification for giving it an R? And honestly, that probably impacted the receipts because it's not anywhere close to scary enough for like hardcore horror fans.
Correct.
And it would appeal to like a 13, 14, 15-year-old maybe, you know, going to the movies with their friends. You know, I feel like they really hurt themselves by not pushing the MPAA for the PG-13
For the PG-13.
rating. Even with the teeth scene where you don't actually see him knock the teeth out, that's off-screen violence. Like it's implied. There's nothing to justify.
But still,
the heart, the ripping out the heart scene in Indiana Jones is worse than anything.
It is.
In this movie.
Yeah, correct.
And then, you know, it's super frustrating because they act throughout the film like there's this big mystery and like stuff is going to be revealed, but like everything is actually revealed in the opening credits where like you see the journal entries and it's like they take the children, they feed on the teeth and bones.
Yeah, my third note was they're tooth fairies.
Exactly, I wrote the same thing.
But it doesn't play out because so you find out that you give them teeth and they somehow you appease them. But it doesn't, outside of the opening sequence where you see that his teeth are gone.
Right.
You know,
but they want children's
out.
teeth. They want children's teeth. They're very specific about the teeth thing. But it doesn't, you're right. It's like, what are they after? Teeth or your soul? Teeth or,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I thought I mean, there's a lot of note for note because I watched these back to back. So I thought it was a really, they really kind of adhered to each one of the story points in the first one, right down to the napkin getting ripped off or left. But I thought it had no tooth to it. It had no bite to it. It was just
nice. Jeff.
You didn't care.
Nice.
You didn't care of the character. You didn't care. You know, again, Sally's losing her freaking mind and the dad doesn't give a shit. Excuse my French.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, like the fact that Guillermo co-wrote this or was involved in any way, you know, makes you think, you know, and because I too read that he loved the source material and that like when he was a kid, him and his brothers used to go around the house doing the little voices with each other.
Great.
And
I want your soul.
Guillermo.
Right.
And you can sort of see where to me it's almost like the director's trying to ape Del Toro's style. But there's not enough substance in the story to justify it.
No, it's a lot of the story points and the visuals borrow from Pan's Labyrinth.
Yes.
They're trying to pull stuff in there from the isolated girl. One of her parents has abandoned her. The roots running through the door. There's a lot of callbacks to hopefully pull back some of that luster that is attached to Pan's Labyrinth to give it to this movie, and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Well, there's no real magic. And one thing, like I noticed it immediately. Once you notice it, it will drive you berserk for the rest of the film. Is that the camera never stops moving. It never stops moving. Even in scenes where it seems like the camera should be still, it's still like panning forward, panning back, moving to the side, going around the table. Like, why will the camera not stop moving? It's making me insane.
Right.
You know, and
he's trying to create tension where it's not there.
But yeah, all it does is annoy you.
You put the camera down. Put the camera.
But the setup of this movie is Lord Lockwood, right? So he is the artist who rivals Audubon with his paintings of nature. Yeah. And so his son goes missing. He's taken into the fireplace by these creatures. And he tries to appease them with his own teeth. Doesn't work. Knocks out the maid's teeth. Doesn't work because the teeth are still there. years later that the girl finds.
Just waiting underneath the bed.
So you have that opening, and as the story goes on, and they're trying to get the girl who's Sally in this now, and I thought it was funny because the girlfriend played by Katie Holmes, her name is Kim.
Kim, yeah.
Which I assume is after Kim Darby.
Yeah. I got
Alex,
that
of course,
impression.
is the same character name as in the
or
original.
Jerk, if you want to call him
But
that.
like, why? This is the thing. Why go to all the trouble of building up this backstory that doesn't really get used in the story?
Yeah.
Because if it was an attempt to sort of flesh things out, it's not pulled through. Like, why would you, first of all, this guy is a lord, right? Lord Blackwood, right? He's supposedly a big deal. Everybody knows who he is. His art has been preserved in a library in a special collection. How come nobody knows that there was horrible murder there?
Right.
How come nobody knows that his son went missing?
Or that
he killed
the housekeeper is dead.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Like, how come nobody knows about this? How come, like, this house isn't known as, like, a haunted place?
We don't talk about that.
For, you know.
And it's just been covered over. The basement has it's been hidden.
Yeah. And how many basements do you know have skylights? It's like, come on. That's not.
But the thing is, if you caught this, is that the lead creature is him. It's Lord Blackwood.
Oh no, I never picked up on that at all.
But you know, the whole tooth fairy thing, like Del Toro did that in Hellboy too.
Correct.
If you remember.
Yeah.
And I thought that
and that's a
tooth
nicer
fairies
design too.
in that were much more frightening.
Oh hell yeah. Yep.
Than the tooth fairies in this. I knew, obviously I'd seen the original, but like as soon as she went through the garden and she saw the fairy circle, I was like, oh, they're tooth fairies.
Yeah, no, as soon as I saw the story, it's like, oh, that's gonna play back in. She's gonna have a protective ring. No,
Right.
that never, nothing.
I know, it's like, why did you put the fairy
Why do you show
circle
me
there?
that? Why do you purposely
Now,
show me?
facially, they tried, I think, to bring in the original design a little bit. Facially, if you squint, it kind of looks similar, but body-wise, they look more like vermin or
Which I think
rats
they said, from what I understood, is closer to what the original movie was like. They just had limitations of the time. The original designs of these creatures for the 73 version were much ganglier, skinny legged or whatever, and you just can't do that with a human in a costume. So
you know, Jim, this actually goes back to you talking about how much you loved the original when you were a kid and like how scary it was. If you were a kid in a house and you heard voices coming out of the vent, would you go toward them?
No. As if they were friendly things calling my name.
Right.
Even
especially if they knew your name.
Even if they were like, come play, I still would not go.
Right. I mean, like when you're that age, I know she's supposed to be depressed or have some kind of psychological condition.
She was on drugs, man.
Like it's not really clear though what's wrong with her because her dad keeps saying, "Oh well, her mother just gives her drugs."
And the mom is a jerk. The mom just like dumped her off, and she's like, you know, you only hear the mom on the phone. Mom, I want to come home.
But like this psychology of a kid who goes toward the monster, like just doesn't play for me. Do you know what I mean? Like she doesn't have any apprehension. When you're that age, your imagination is like through the roof. If I was that age and I heard stuff coming out of the vents, I would never go in that basement ever again.
Right, correct.
And they tried to set up a connection between her and the monsters because she was drawing that spiral in the beginning.
Right.
Which is the view that you get when you look down in this film, down that crawl space. And it's just a stone spiral going downwards into whatever their lair is. So you kind of got a sense that she has some sort of psychic connection with them.
And there was those little hints like that just never went anywhere.
Yeah,
the girlfriend who is trying her best to connect with this kid, you know, she ends up going to the museum or she goes to the library and she sees
the librarian knows more than anybody else about these creatures.
But once again, we have the friggin' groundskeeper Willie who knows everything but just keeps his freaking mouth shut.
And he's always just yelling at people when he's
correct. Well, he's grumpy. He was a grumpy old man. But it's like you just open your pie hole and tell everybody what's going on.
And then let's talk about how, like, again, ominous caretaker guy gets beaten up.
It was an accident.
Stabbed.
In the back, by the way.
There's scissors in his back.
Sticking in his back.
He comes walking out covered in blood, and everybody in the family is like, that's peculiar.
Right.
You know?
Meanwhile, the maid is Mrs. Underhill, and it's like,
Was that
we're all
Aunt
gonna.
May? Was that Aunt May from the first
Oh,
Spider-Man movie?
I didn't pick.
It looked like her. It looked a lot like her.
Aunt May.
But like, if the guy comes out of the basement, wouldn't you be like, wait, how did he get beaten up?
Right. What's going on down there?
Who put scissors in his back?
No, her name was Julia Blake. That was not.
Okay.
Yeah, who put scissors? I accidentally tripped and fell on these scissors.
Guy Pearce a little bit later refers to it as the accident that he had. What kind of accident is that?
Meanwhile, what is going on with Guy Pearce? He looked like an anorexic Wahlberg to me.
Well,
there's some weird thing going on. But he's just missing the Boston accent.
Like, who did his hair? Who dressed Katie Holmes? Like,
at one point, he's wearing the scarf. I'm like, he just came off the set of the Time Machine.
And did you notice the "Be Afraid" that was carved into the grate in this version?
It looks like Norse runes. Like, 'cause it's not really like it's not really clear. You know, it's kind of dusty. But like, wouldn't you be like, what is this writing?
Right, correct.
Or rather than be afraid, just creatures inside, you know, and an arrow pointing down.
Right. A little tooth with a circle and a line through it.
I mean, yes. Like, a lot of times horror movies are sort of predicated on the fact that people make stupid decisions.
There's a lot of stupid decisions.
And then nobody believes her. She kills one of them at one point with the bookcase. She's got a body. She's got a body.
Yeah. And she's carrying around a Polaroid. What year is this? Kid's got a Polaroid and it just has
unlimited. Yeah, you only get 10 pictures in a Polaroid.
Is that what it is? I meant to look it up, like what the cartridge. Yeah, she's like firing that thing off left and right.
Well, the flash is limited. The flash bar.
She did have the 4-cube.
The old school cube.
So I think that each one of those, like that used to be like once you clicked it, it would flip. So you actually had 4 flashes per cube, and she had 4 cubes, but they wouldn't have been able to rotate. So.
But yeah, does it make sense?
Like, this is what we
show her dad.
Caught up on.
But does it make sense that she would show her dad the Polaroid when the arm is right there?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Like, they specifically showed her killing the thing. I'm like, oh, great. She's going to show them that the arm is here. And then instead of taking their hysterical kid out of the house, they're like, why don't you go lay down while we have an adult conversation?
Listen, we're having a party going on here. You can't be ruining this.
And the most plausible thing that happens is the kid just ups and leaves. She's like, I'm packing my stuff and I'm walking away from this house.
Which is what Sally in the original movie was like, I'm just going to lay here. There's one nice jump scare, and that's when the thing goes underneath their bed.
Under
and
the covers.
The sheets.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm sure, I don't remember this at all, but I'm sure that was probably ruined in the trailer. Because it's a nice.
Oh, I'm sure.
She's slowly making her way back, and you see the sheets are, starting to come up, and you know what's in there. You see it, and all of a sudden it's just like, screaming banshee in your face.
And the only nice thing about that is that when you're a kid, your sheets are magical, right? Your sheets keep the monsters away.
It's like the invisibility cloak from Harry Potter.
You could like pull your sheets up and the monster would not come in. So like the idea of the monster being under the sheets, but it's not really, again, it's like not really played out. Like it's just not, I don't know, like that moment should feel like a huge violation.
Yeah, no. And she's more in like wonder than she is of fear.
Yeah, and so is the audience. Like, how did this movie get made?
Right.
But you can kind of see the potential of it if certain things had sort of been pulled through. I think like less fidelity to the original.
I think the point of making this would be true to the original. I don't think there would be any reason to remake this unless you were, a lover of that first movie.
Then why do it? It just if you're not
but again, Jeff, you've said it before. Why not remake movies that are crappy? Why remake movies that are great classics? Why not?
Right.
And this is a case of that. Maybe somebody trying to bring it up to speed or bring it up to something good, but it didn't.
I don't think it worked. No, it didn't work.
I think if they
I was happy to pay $2.99 for the first one. I'm glad this one was free.
I think if they invested more in the mythology that they tried to build.
Yes.
And if Guillermo himself had directed this, I think maybe he would have transcended the material, but
I just think that the whole like backstory with Blackwood is so ultimately meaningless to the outcome.
Right.
It doesn't have to be in there. So they shouldn't have put it in unless they were going to, like I said, sort of
Somehow it
invest
was
more
gonna. Yep.
Right.
in that mythology
Yeah.
and like play
Yep.
it through. I mean, this could have been, you know, they could have played this out like a turn of the screw type story, you know, where it's something that's in the estate and it's, you know, generational and
Right.
you know,
Yeah, because you had those beautiful paintings that she discovered that he did of these creatures, and then she sees that Sally basically painted or drew the same thing. So
and
it's
were
like
these
a
creatures
cycle.
all denizens of the house at one point or
Yeah.
other through
Right.
history? Because they make pains to show you that one of the creatures is Lord Blackwood,
which
and
I never
that's
picked
the
up
one
on,
where
yeah.
that's the one that she kills with a flashlight at the end.
Yeah.
And he's
Which
the
is like,
leader.
oh, all I had to do is step on these.
So
like-
that's the only connection for me, is like it's showing that the humans that are taken are become
Converted or to somehow become these things over time.
But yeah, they never.
No, it never. It
The
doesn't come to
librarian is the
fruition.
only one that knows anything about these things.
And he's smart. He just stays in the
Yeah.
library. He's like,
Yeah.
I'm not going to the house.
They
What, are you
can't get
kidding
me here. Yeah.
Right, exactly. I got false teeth, baby. Ah.
Do you guys ever hear Eddie Murphy's thing? This is from a really old comedy routine where he talks about haunted houses.
Get out of the house. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right. He's like talking about like, why do white people always stay in the
Correct,
house
right.
in the
So
haunted
stupid.
the haunted
Yeah.
houses? You know, like white guy sees blood in the toilet. It's like, that's peculiar.
But I think Alex at one point even says, because I think that Kim is trying to get him to leave. He's like, I put so much money into this house. I'm not leaving it now.
Oh yeah, Architectural Digest is going to put me on the cover.
Oh yeah, so that was the other carryover that he was
They were
the interior
flipping the house.
designer.
All they were doing was
she was
fixing
the
up so
yeah.
it would be on the cover of the magazine. Then they were out as soon as the magazine.
So do you think when they actually sold it, did they tell anybody that there was a demonic woman that?
Well, that's the thing is maybe that's why it's hush hush, because they can't sell the house if that's part of the
you know,
spiel,
if you know for a fact that your house is haunted, you have to reveal that to the realtor. People
is that a
have to
law?
know
Is that a
I believe
state
it
law?
is. I don't know if that's a state by state, but you do need to give people heads up that, oh yeah, by the way, don't bring any good china.
I mean, the house itself is gorgeous.
Yes, the
Like,
set itself was very impressive. Yeah.
the house is very, very beautiful.
I didn't
yeah.
see where they filmed it. It was set in Rhode Island, but I don't know what
It's
the actual
filmed-
location.
So it was funny because I actually recognized when they were in the city for a second. It was filmed in Australia. And
Really?
Yes.
Which looks just like Rhode Island.
So Guy Pearce didn't have to leave home for this,
There
apparently.
you go. Yeah.
The mansion is known as the Drusilla Mansion, and it's it's an old site that's been used for a lot of movies apparently. And the scene when they're in the city is actually in Melbourne, and I was in that exact place. So even though it just looks sort of like a generic city, but I was like, oh, I know where that is, because I was just there 2 months ago. And so it's actually filmed in Australia.
Interesting.
Interesting.
And if anybody doesn't realize, the kid does not get taken.
No, Katie Holmes puts a stop to that. So Sally does not get dragged into the
but they
fireplace.
they do go right down that road of little Sally being dragged.
It's like, the same scene. It's a much larger set of stairs that they have to bang her head against every stair when they drag her down
poor
there.
Katie Holmes takes the brunt of that. And boy, I'm telling you right now, your knee does not bend that way. That was a rough scene. That was a little like, oh.
Yeah, they break her the wrong way to get her through that little opening into the fireplace.
Yeah.
Because she's there cutting the rope to get Sally untangled, and then she gets tangled up in the rope herself. Yeah. And she gets pulled down. And just like the ending is pretty much verbatim, it doesn't seem like any effort is made to go after her.
Right. She's down the well. Oh, well.
Yeah.
If only we had Lassie to go save her. Yeah, well, there goes another one. There's another girlfriend down the tube.
But she is now one of them at the end of the movie, is Kim's character. And it ends the same way. We have all the time in the world. Someone will come. Yeah. Someone will come. But I guess it's like a gravesite. They go to the house every once in a while and they leave flowers. But in this case, they leave a little.
Yeah, that was weird.
And
like,
do you notice Sally is dressed like Kim now?
Yes, I noticed that too. I was like, who dressed this kid?
Maybe if Katie Holmes is lucky, they have Scientology down there.
Oh,
I don't know, man. They're both to me like deeply unscary. just like no suspense,
Yeah.
no nothing.
Oh, I think the original had a little more.
Yeah, I would say that I was extremely disappointed with this the first time I saw it. This is the first set of movies that I thought of when this series came up. When else am I going to be able to do?
So is this considered like Del Toro's Planet of the Apes? I mean, do we?
He didn't direct it.
No, I know, but his name is associated with it, and it's front and center on top of the movie poster.
I would love to sit down with this man and talk with him. I would talk with him for hours about the movies I watched when I was 7 years old.
Yeah, because he probably does have a lot of the same memories or exposed to the same things.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So I tip my hat to him for actually making this and loving bringing
the original to light.
Trying to bring this into modern times to a modern audience, but it
didn't work.
Didn't work. I'd give it maybe 2 buckets.
Ooh, I go 1.5.
1.5?
Yeah.
Christine.
There's a lot of silence on that
end. Half a bucket because the house is gorgeous.
Nice.
Hey! The first one still beat it.
I gave it to 1 for you, Jim. That was for you.
I'll take that. I'll take that.
Right?
Yeah, I don't know. I just, I don't think my heart rate went up like half a beat. And to me, that's just so frustrating. I do not need the movie to be gory. And it doesn't even need to be super original, but I want to feel the suspense. And I did not feel any suspense throughout. That, to me, is a non-effective horror movie.
So no sequel in the works, from what I understand. And never will be.
Still don't be afraid of the dark. Once again, turn the freaking lights on.
Yeah.
That's all you got to do here.
Pull back the curtains, open the windows.
Right.
Also,
you're in a bathtub, the light goes off, you put the light back on.
You know, or notice how those spinning silhouette lights are only ever in horror movies?
Oh, the carousel light. That, you want me to turn this off, honey? No, it looks really good on screen, Dad. You keep that on.
That's how you know you're in a horror movie.
That's right, just so you can't see the creature just enough.
So I've got this out of my system now, so let's move on to our confessional question this week.
Confessionals.
And what do we have?
And it's funny because I think even before I saw the movie, I was like, these things are like tooth fairies. So I just went down the road of, I think we all like mythological creatures.
Yeah,
so we could choose one.
Are you trying to show your cryptozoologist?
See, so here's the thing, right? So here's the thing, which is, if you could pick any mythological creature as a pet, what would it be? So yes, Jim, to your point, just based on my past discussions and anybody who knows me since I was 4 years old, Sasquatch or Bigfoot would be the go-to, but they're too big and smelly. What am I going to do with them?
Yeah, they're called the skunk ape in Florida.
Well, skunk ape, you got the yowie, you got the yeti. They're by nature just dirty animals. They live outside. They stink. And as much fun as that would be, I said no to Bigfoot because we all saw Harry and Henderson's. It does not end well. That house is going to get destroyed.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have any dead animals hanging on my wall, but I went with the griffin because listen, if I'm going to have a pet, I'm going to ride him.
You want to fly?
Damn straight. So anybody who doesn't know what a griffin is, it's what body, tail, and back end of a lion, but the front end is an eagle with wings, and sometimes the front legs are talons. Not to be confused with a hippogriff, which is, I think, half eagle, half horse. But yeah, man, I'll fly him. I'll ride around. I think he's pretty formidable. People start looting my house, I'll just stick this thing on him. Take him to the store, put a mask on his beak, we're good to go. Sasquatch, maybe, but
a little unwieldy.
Yeah, unless I had like a baby one.
But hilarity would ensue.
Hilarity would ensue. I'm thinking my cats would not. He might eat the cats. Oh, wait, that was Elf. Never mind. Griffin was my answer.
What do you got, Christina?
So when Jeff initially presented the question, he also said we could include fictional animals.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what that meant. Did that mean we still have to be mythological?
Like a Pokemon?
Or...
Like a Pokemon?
Well,
I think we just kind of...
I took that to mean like you could choose an animal from a book that
there you go.
So just a little bit of background. I don't know if you guys know that I'm like kind of a misanthrope. I don't really like to see people.
Oh, I thought you were telling me you were a werewolf.
Or encounter.
That's a lycanthrope. That's a
or encounter them. And like, I love living in a city, but one of the things I hate about living in the city is actually like people with clipboards who stand in the middle of the sidewalk. And they always
Excuse me, can I have a survey?
There is like, I want to stop and talk to you about like XYZ issue, and it's probably something that I believe in. It's probably something I already donate to. I just don't want to be stopped when I'm going somewhere.
Can you just say no habla español?
And I feel super bad for these very earnest kids, who want you to sign their petition, but I do not want to be stopped and I do not want to be talked to when I'm going somewhere. So this plays into my choice of animal. So if you're familiar with Peter Beagle's classic novel, The Last Unicorn, or perhaps the film, yes. I would like to have a Red Bull. I would like a giant flaming bull that will keep people away from me.
Red Bull gives you wings.
You know what's funny is that my wife continuously requests that we do The Last Unicorn.
We should, because it is a beautiful, the animation is, I thought you were going to go unicorn. I was obsessed with
Why would I pick a unicorn?
I had a weird preoccupation with unicorns when I was a kid. Well, maybe a Pegasus then. So, but the Red Bull, wow. So do you just wanders down the street and you just like bops these people out of the way as you're going?
Nobody's even going to try to talk to you if you're out walking around.
Would you ride him or would you walk him?
No, I'd walk next to him. Yes.
He's pretty big.
That's right. It's going to clear the way for me.
Wasn't he on flames? Wasn't he a flame?
Yes, he's a flame. How cool is that? A giant flaming
It would burn the
bull.
leash. It would burn the leash and he would just run amok.
What leash? You have voice control for an animal like that.
Oh, maybe you trained him since he was a little tiny calf.
That's right.
Nice.
What does it say about us that none of our choices have the best of intentions? It's all about hurting other people.
I didn't say that my griffin was going to eat people.
And I'm not
going to the poor kids from Amway.
I'm not going to set the Red Bull on anyone. It's just there to intimidate. Okay.
Based on your shirt, I was so surprised you didn't pick a Kraken.
I almost said the Kraken just so I could say that every once in a while. But instead, I redirected my attention from that same film, Clash of the Titans, and I would keep Medusa's head in a bag. I wouldn't even keep Medusa. I would just carry like a satchel around my shoulder, just carry the bag with me at all times and just, silently, every once in a while, take it out. Bah, bah.
You have to make sure that you take it out facing the right way, though. Imagine if you took it out of the bag and it was actually facing you.
Well, you'd have to feel around like, okay, there's the nose, there's okay. I'm going to hold it up.
I know, but after a while, it's going to fester.
Then I'd have a collection of statues in my bag.
You have to drag those statues home. Maybe you could borrow Christina's bull to drag those statues back to your house.
I think these answers reveal that I'm not the only misanthrope.
No. You do not lay claim to that term.
Oh, my.
I hate to say it, but I saw an upside to all of this COVID stuff. Like, I can stay indoors with reason.
Yeah, I was going to say introverts unite here. It's like, woohoo.
I know, it's like I don't need to come up with an excuse to not go to your party.
Yeah. Nope, sorry, COVID. COVID.
Yeah. We actually went.
I'm going to use this at least a year from now as an excuse. All right, COVID might still be around. Sorry.
Yeah,
sorry.
Listen, I know. I'm very hands off even when I see people. I'm like, no, sorry, we're good. That's fine.
So next week we are doing our concluding chapter in our series of original / remake.
I wonder what those movies could be.
And Christina is up. So what do we have on dock?
So just like Jim, I wanted to take an opportunity to make you guys watch a movie that we wouldn't watch otherwise. And I'm talking about the Hong Kong cinema classic Infernal Affairs. Starring Andy Lau and Tony Leung, and the Martin Scorsese remake, The Departed, which I am
he remade it?
Not as enthused about.
You're showing your hand already.
Of course I'm showing my hand already.
Well, this is the theme of this.
Yeah, I know. Well, the first, it could have gone either way. By the time you get into the second episode, they're like, all right, so these guys are just ripping on.
Well, we'll have to do this again sometime, but with movies that we actually respect that are.
Yes,
remakes.
yeah, absolutely. Yep, where the remakes is superior to the original,
or at least as good as.
As good as.
Yeah.
Okay. Subjective, but okay.
It is. It's always subjective.
Yes, well, that's.
Yeah.
I'm sure that there's defenders of all these movies out there going, you guys don't know what they're talking about. And you know what I say to that? Get your own show. I'm coming for your soul. So that's cool. I've never seen either one of these movies. So
I'm surprised you haven't seen The Departed at all.
No, once again, it's like Leonardo DiCaprio. It's right up there. It's Scorsese. We've already had this discussion. But I'm in. Let's watch. I'll watch.
So I'm very excited that you guys are going to watch Infernal Affairs because this is just one of my favorite films of all time.
How many times during next week's episode are Jim and I going to refer to it as Internal Affairs?
I don't know.
I already did.
Jim already did this episode.
I promise I'll correct you every time.
Just do the wag. Just do the finger wag and the scream.
No,
if anybody doesn't realize, we can see each other.
We should both have some kind of electric collar so she can shout.
Let's not go there. Speaking of electric collars, there's a stupid. You have a story. Speaking of electric collars, yes. I
set you up for something there.
Yes, I don't normally listen. This week has been really rough work wise, and I don't get home until 10 o'clock at night. And I put on TV just to decompress for 10 minutes. And there's a show on, I don't know if it's ABC. And do you remember Wipeout? Where it was like the obstacle course?
Yes.
Okay. Well, they have one now. It's called Holy Moly. And it's hosted by Rob Riggle and this other guy. But it's like extreme mini golf. And at one point, they're in like a suit of armor with flamethrowers at them while they're trying to putt the ball. But there's one hole where they have electric bands around their knees and elbows, and they get electric shocked. And I'm like, this is like sadomasochistic. This is crazy stuff. So it was funny watching someone else get zapped.
Wow.
All right, kids. Well, thank you very much for listening.
Yeah, thank you as always.
It was a good choice, Jim. I enjoyed it.
Thank you.
See, I didn't cower. I stood strong, but no more talking downs. Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Hello, everybody. If you liked the podcast you just heard, then please follow TMI on all of our social media outlets. First and foremost, email us at tmipodcast2018@gmail.com. That is tmipodcast2018@gmail.com.
And you can follow us on Twitter at TMI_podcast2018. Stop over, say hi, give us a compliment. We'd love to hear from you.
Awesome. Make sure you follow us on Instagram as well, which is also TMI_podcast2018.
And of course, we are on Facebook, facebook.com/TMI Podcast 2018. And it should be noted, we also have a community page, so join the forum.
And if you like to watch YouTube, you can see us at TMI Podcast 2018, all one word. Look for the popcorn bucket.
Popcorn bucket. Or you could just go to our website, which has every link there, TMIConfessionalspodcast.com. And we'll see you at the concession stand.
We'll save some popcorn for you.
So it's like
through the fireplace. Oh!
Guillermo.